Chosen one. The countdown has begun. Heaven's clock is no longer silent. Something shifts in the unseen realm as the calendar approaches November 1st. You have felt it in your spirit, an invisible stirring, a pulse that refuses to let you stay the same. This is not imagination. It is the sound of destiny unlocking. There are seasons when God whispers, and there are moments when heaven thunders. This is one of those moments. The last door is opening not for the crowd, but for those who have endured the hidden years, who remained faithful when no one saw. You are among them. The prophet spoke in the book of Zechariah, chapter 10, verse 1. Ask the Lord for rain. In the springtime, it is the Lord who sends the storms. He gives rain to all. The rain in that verse is more than water. It is divine timing. When heaven sends its rain, the ground that once cracked with drought suddenly blossoms. The delay ends. The door opens. There was once a woman who lived like the fields of autumn dry, weary and waiting. She had prayed for change, but found only silence. Every effort failed. Every prayer seemed to echo back, unanswered. But one night, she sensed God say, "Hold still, your November is coming." She didn't understand. She simply waited. When the 1st of November arrived, the very situation that had refused to move for years broke open within hours. She wept, not because of what changed, but because she realized the delay had been preparation. That's how heaven works. The storm that frightens the world is often the same storm that brings your rain. The thunder you hear is not warning, it's announcement. God is about to water what has been buried within you. Think of this moment like a great hallway lined with doors. Many are closed, painted with familiar failures and old fears. Yet at the far end, one door glows with a light that seems alive. That is your final door, the one that leads into the next season of your calling. It opens not to effort, but to surrender. It responds to faith, to your willingness to trust that what's on the other side was prepared long before you were ready. The air itself feels different now, doesn't it? You sense that things are shifting quietly in the background. Messages arrive out of nowhere. Conversations turn prophetic. Dreams become sharper. This is heaven's way of saying, pay attention. Every small sign, every divine coincidence is a spark guiding you toward that door. You have waited long enough to know that comfort and calling rarely coexist. The moment you move toward purpose, resistance rises. But what once intimidated you will soon yield beneath your feet. This is the season where obedience will open what talent could not. Imagine yourself standing in a great field under a dim sky. The earth beneath you is dry and cracked. Then a single drop falls, one drop of rain, and suddenly the horizon darkens with clouds, heavy with promise. The storm comes, but it does not destroy. It awakens the sleeping seeds. That is what November 1st will be. A divine storm that resurrects what you thought was over. You may have felt invisible, but heaven was writing your name into a new chapter. The unseen hand that kept you waiting was also protecting you from premature exposure, because not every door that opens early leads to blessing. Some lead to burnout. But this one, the last one, carry peace. When it opens, you will know. It will not demand your striving. It will meet your surrender. It will not drain you. It will empower you. God's rain does not ask permission. It simply falls where faith stands waiting. So take a breath. Look back at the ground you have walked every barren day, every unanswered prayer, every long night that felt endless. Those were the seeds being buried. November 1st is the rain coming for them. And when the storm begins, do not hide. Lift your face. Let it wash away the dust of the old season. Let it renew your strength. For this is the appointed time, and you are ready. If this message echoes in your spirit, let heaven know you hear, like this message. Share it forward. And in the comments below, write the number 111 as a sign of agreement, the number of divine alignment, the step through the last door. Your countdown is not a warning, it's an awakening. The rain is coming. And this time, it carries your name. You have carried the mark all along. Though you may not have seen it, the world mistook your difference for weakness, your sensitivity for fragility, your silence for insignificance. Yet heaven saw what they could not, the seal placed upon your soul before the beginning of time. It was not ink or symbol, it was purpose. Every trial that tried to crush you only revealed that seal more clearly. You were marked not for ease, but for endurance, not for applause, but for assignment. That is why certain paths never opened for you. It was never rejection, it was redirection. Sometimes the chosen one walks through life feeling misplaced. Like a traveler with the right key in the wrong city, you tried to fit into systems that could not contain you. You bent yourself to match expectations that dulled your fire. But no matter how far you wandered, something inside you kept whispering, "You are not like the rest." That whisper was heaven's reminder of who you are. Think back to the moments when you almost lost your faith, when you prayed and nothing shifted, when you served faithfully but felt unseen. It was in those moments that heaven's eyes were most fixed on you. Because diamonds are not polished in comfort, they are refined through pressure. The word of the Lord reminds us in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 30, those he predestined, he also called; those he called, he also justified; he also glorified. That is your story written before your first breath. Predestined, called, justified, glorified. Even when you questioned your worth, heaven never questioned its choice. Being marked does not mean being celebrated. It often means being misunderstood. Every chosen one walks through a season where they seem invisible to men, but irreplaceable to God. That hiddenness is sacred. It is the forge where true authority is born. A story is told of a young man who carried a strange conviction that his life had meaning beyond his circumstances. He grew up unnoticed, his talents overlooked, his prayers met with silence. Yet one night, as he sat alone under a flickering streetlight, he heard these words echo within his heart: "You are marked for something that has no precedent." He didn't understand, but the peace that followed was undeniable. Years later, the very experiences that once shamed him became the platform through which he spoke healing to thousands. The mark was no mystery anymore. It was proof of divine orchestration. Chosen one. Your mark is what darkness fears most. It's why storms rise without warning. The enemy doesn't fight what isn't valuable. Every attack has been a distorted confirmation that you carry something powerful. Imagine yourself as a lantern in a storm. The wind howls, the rain lashes, but still the flame burns within. It flickers, but it does not die. The mark of heaven is that flame. You might have been drenched, shaken, even nearly extinguished, but that inner fire refuses to go out. Because it is not your own, It is God's breath inside you. There will come a day when others look at you and call it overnight success. They won't see the years of hidden pain, the nights when you wrestled with doubt but refused to let go of faith. Heaven saw it all. Every tear you cried became ink in the story. Heaven is writing through you. That mark is not a decoration, it's a declaration. It says, "This one belongs to the light," and when the light claims you, no shadow can own you again. You were not meant to blend in. You were meant to break patterns. You were designed to remind others that ordinary people, when touched by extraordinary grace, can change generations. That is why you feel the weight you do. It's not a curse. It's the pressure of purpose. Now, as November approaches, that mark begins to respond. The spiritual air thickens because heaven recognizes its own. The doors that ignored you before will begin to sense your authority. The same name that once brought indifference will soon carry impact. This is not arrogance, it's alignment. When the seal of God glows, creation itself takes notice. You have been hidden for a season so that when you emerge, there will be no doubt that it was God who raised you. The mark ensures that when promotion comes, it cannot be attributed to chance. It will carry divine fingerprints. So, walk lightly, but walk with awareness. You are not waiting to be chosen, you already are. You are learning to see what heaven has known all along. The mark is not what you earn, it is what you carry. And when the time comes and it's close, the mark will not just be your identity, it will become your authority. There are moments when the air around you grows strangely still, when even familiar sounds seem distant, and everything you've depended on becomes quiet. That is not emptiness, it is the whisper before the storm. Heaven often speaks in silence just before it moves in power. Chosen one, this is where you find yourself now, standing in the calm before a divine rearrangement. You felt delayed, restless, caught between clarity and confusion. Doors you once thought would open remain locked. Conversations end abruptly. Blancrembe. Yet deep inside, something tells you not to quit. That tug, that uneasy stirring, is not frustration, it's preparation. The prophet wrote in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3, "For the vision awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." Those words are for you. The lingering is not denial, it's precision. Heaven is aligning every piece so that when your moment arrives, nothing can interrupt it. The storm is already forming on the horizon, but it is not a storm to destroy it. It is a storm to deliver. There was once a man named Elias who lived with constant frustration. He worked hard, prayed faithfully, and yet everything he touched seemed to stall. He often whispered, "Maybe I missed God." But one day, while sitting in a cafe, his phone rang with an unexpected call, an invitation to something that would shift his life forever. Later that night, he realized that the silence he had despised was the very season where heaven had been arranging his miracle behind the scenes. The storm that followed wasn't chaos, it was fulfillment. That is what happens right before heaven moves. The winds change direction. People leave suddenly. Things stop working that once seemed stable. Not because you've done something wrong, but because you've outgrown the old structure. The cocoon must tighten before it breaks open. This silence is sacred. It's the stretch before flight. the pause before a song begins, the still water that mirrors heaven's face. Many mistake it for rejection, but it's actually divine restraint, God holding things back until they can bless you, not break you. Look closely at your own story. Hasn't it been the quiet moments that shaped you the most? The nights when there were no answers, yet somehow your faith deepened. The mornings when you rose despite exhaustion. Those are not wasted chapters, they are foundations. Heaven is writing endurance into your DNA. You may not realize it, but you are being tuned like an instrument. The strings of your heart are being stretched so that when God finally plays the next note of your destiny, it will resonate with power. What feels like tension now will soon become harmony. Imagine standing on a beach before dawn. The sky is dark. The waves seem endless, and the air is heavy. But then, in a single breath, the first line of gold pierces the horizon. That's how quickly seasons shift. One moment, silent. The next, resurrection. The whisper before the storm is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to make you listen. The wind that once carried dust will soon carry rain. Heaven is not late, it is deliberate. You are closer than you think. Soon the silence will break, not with thunder that terrifies, but with a voice that confirms, now. And when it happens, everything you endured will make sense. You will see that every quiet night, every unanswered prayer, was part of the rhythm leading to revelation. Do not rush this quiet. It is holy ground. Let the world run frantic. You stand still. You are being synchronized with divine time. And when that first rumble echoes through your spirit, you will not be afraid. You will recognize it, not as the end, but as heaven's beginning. If your spirit feels this stirring, leave your sign below. Comment, I'm listening. Let it be your declaration that in the silence, you still trust, that even when heaven whispers, your heart remains awake. Because those who can hear the whisper are always the first to see the storm of blessing that follows. If your spirit feels this stirring, leave your sign below. Comment, I'm listening. Let it be your declaration that in the silence, you still trust, that even when heaven whispers, your heart remains awake. When you write, I'm listening, you're not just typing words, you're signaling to heaven that your spirit is alert and your faith unbroken. It's your way of saying, I am ready for instruction. No, this simple comment becomes a prophetic act, marking your willingness to hear what others ignore. It invites divine direction into your stillness, aligning your steps with the rhythm of God's timing. There comes a moment when the unseen becomes undeniable, when what you've sensed in your spirit begins to take shape in the physical world. This is the unveiling of the last door. You've heard whispers about it in prayer, glimpsed it in dreams, and felt its pull when everything else fell still. The last door is not a place, it is a passage. It stands between your obedience and your overflow. You cannot stumble through it by chance. It opens only to those who have endured refining and remained faithful when others turned away. You are among them. The final door is not guarded by locks of metal, but by thresholds of surrender. It will not yield to pride, fear, or hesitation, only to trust. The scriptures reveal this truth in the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 8. I know your deeds. See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. I know that you have little strength, yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. And for this is not about strength, it is about steadfastness. The door recognizes endurance. It opens not because of your perfection, but because of your persistence. Heaven responds to hearts that have refused to quit. Imagine walking through a corridor where every step echoes like time itself, listening. The walls are lined with moments from your life, the times you wanted to give up, the prayers whispered in exhaustion, the tears that fell when no one was watching. Each memory flickers like a candle, lighting your path toward the threshold ahead. And at the end of that hall stands a single, radiant doorway pulsing with light. That is the last door. You pause before it, trembling, not from fear, but from awe. You realize this is not a new beginning built on ambition, it's the completion of obedience. The door doesn't lead away from your past, it transforms it. Everything that once seemed random now becomes reason. Every wound now becomes wisdom. Before the last door, heaven tests not your desire, but your willingness. Many long for the promise, but few surrender for it. You have been in that season of surrender, laying down timelines, releasing control, trusting, even when the silence stretched too long. All of it was preparation. Sometimes God will bring you to the brink, just to prove that breakthrough isn't found in striving but in stillness. The final door demands a quiet heart. It opens not when you shout at it, but when you whisper, "Your will, not mine." Think of the blacksmith who shapes a blade. He places iron in the fire again and again, not to destroy it, but to make it unbreakable. That's what heaven has been doing with you. The heat was never meant to burn you. It was meant to reveal the strength hidden within. Now, as the flames die down, the shape of purpose becomes clear. The door glows brighter because the vessel is ready. You might wonder why it is called the last door. It is not because nothing comes after. It's because once you step through, you will never again return to who you were. It is the door of no return, the one that separates survival from calling, ordinary from anointed. Beyond it lies not ease, but clarity, not escape, but assignment. You may feel unqualified, but that is exactly why heaven chose you. The last door does not require perfection, it requires purity of intent. Your heart, though wounded, is willing. Your faith, though tested, remains alive. That is what unlocks the hinge. There's a sound you will hear when it opens. It's not the creak of old wood, but the rush of wind, a divine breath that sweeps through your spirit, clearing the dust of disappointment. It will not announce itself loudly. It will come like the soft wind Elijah felt on the mountain, a gentle assurance that heaven has moved. As you step closer, notice what happens around you. Old friendships fade. New voices appear. Opportunities rearrange. These are signs that the last door is aligning with your arrival. Heaven never opens it prematurely. It waits until your character can carry what your calling demands. When you finally cross it, you will know, not because fireworks will blaze in the sky, but because peace will fill the room where anxiety used to live. You will breathe differently, speak differently, walk with the calm authority of someone who knows they are seen. The last door doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes your perspective. You will look back and understand that every delay, every detour, every closed door before this one was not denial but design. And when you stand on the other side, you won't boast. You'll bow, Because the last door is not just an entrance, it is an encounter. You now stand at the crossroads of light and shadow. Around you, two voices whisper, one calling you forward, another begging you to turn back. The closer you get to destiny, the louder the distractions become. But this tension is not proof that you are lost. It is confirmation that you are near the threshold of transformation. The scriptures reveal in the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Courage is not born from comfort. It grows in the collision between faith and fear. You have been walking through that collision for a long time, haven't you? Every decision you made to keep believing, every time you chose prayer over panic, that was courage. Heaven saw it. This moment, this crossroads, is the final test of alignment. The light represents obedience, the steady path that leads to your divine assignment. The shadow represents comfort, the safe route that demands nothing but costs everything. Every chosen one must face this intersection. It is the moment when you realize that obedience may cost you what is familiar, but it will give you what is eternal. There's a story of a young woman named Leah who reached her crossroads when everything seemed secure. She had a steady job, predictable days, and enough to call it stability. Yet, deep down, she knew God was calling her to step into something bigger, something that terrified her. For months, she delayed, waiting for a sign. Then one morning, as she was reading scripture, she read the same verse. You just heard Joshua 1-9. The words felt alive. That same day, she quit her job to start a shelter for abandoned children. Years later, that shelter became a refuge for hundreds. The light had guided her through fear. You, too, will find that obedience often feels like walking blindfolded, but you are not walking alone. Heaven walks with you, and when your steps align with divine timing, even the shadows begin to move aside. This battle between light and darkness is not external, it begins within. You have seen what happens when you let fear lead. It builds walls. But when faith leads, it builds bridges. The light will always cost something, but it never takes without giving greater in return. Imagine your journey like a lantern carried through a vast forest. The flame represents your faith. The forest is filled with both beauty and danger. There are moments when the path grows dim and you feel like the light might go out. But every time you protect that flame through prayer, through kindness, through generosity, you keep it alive, not just for yourself, but for others walking behind you. Your obedience becomes their illumination. And that chosen one is the hidden power of this journey. Every small act of faith ripples outward. When you share this message, when you subscribe to stay connected to the flow of these words, you're not just pressing a button, you're passing the torch forward into another soul's night. If these messages have carried light to your spirit, consider being a keeper of that light. Your gift, whether a simple like, a share, or even a small donation, is a drop of oil in the lamp that keeps this flame burning. Think of it as adding your light to a river of fire that flows across the darkness. Each act of support, a spark that joins the greater flame. You owe nothing. This is not a demand. It is simply an open hand extended toward those who believe in keeping the message alive. Your kindness becomes the unseen current that allows these words to reach another weary traveler. When you do, know that heaven sees not the size of your gift, but the heart behind it. The flame that warms you today may be the same one that guides another tomorrow. Remember, the crossroads is not a trap, it is a test. The light will always ask something of you, but it will give you more than you imagined. And when you take that step forward, the path ahead will not only unfold, it will shine. Because you are not meant to simply walk in the light, you are meant to become it. When you share your light, you remind heaven that hope still lives on earth. Carried by willing hearts, unafraid to shine through the darkness together. Every spark you give becomes a living prayer, an echo that says, "I'm still here, and I still believe." That echo keeps the flame alive everywhere. There are moments when time itself seems to bend, when everything slows just before something divine unfolds. That is what November brings, a turning point written into heaven's timeline, where delay ends and alignment begins. You've walked through shadows, through testing and silence, but now the atmosphere changes. You can feel it, something unseen moving closer, like a sunrise just beyond the horizon. This is not coincidence. It is orchestration. Heaven does not rush, but it never arrives late. The first day of November is not a random sunrise, it is a reset in the spirit. The moment where what was hidden begins to reveal its purpose. The scriptures remind us in the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 9, "The glory of this present house will be greater than the glory of the former house, says the Lord Almighty, and in this place I will grant peace." Those words carry the weight of renewal. What is coming will be greater than what has been lost. The peace you have been searching for is not absence of struggle, it is divine stability in the middle of it. Heaven is about to rebuild what was broken, not as a copy of the past, but as a version refined by fire. Picture the scene. The last of October fades like embers in the night. The clock strikes midnight, and the air shifts. The spiritual wind that once whispered now begins to roar. You feel clarity returning where confusion once lived. Decisions you once feared suddenly feel possible. What you couldn't see before becomes visible, and what you thought was over begins again. That is the nature of November. First, it carries the fragrance of new beginnings disguised as endings. There was once a man named Jonah, not the prophet, but a builder. For years, he worked on a project that seemed cursed. Materials ran out. Workers quit, and the dream began to crumble. But one day, while cleaning the empty site, he found a notebook from his father, who had been a carpenter before him. On the first page were the words, "The second foundation always stands stronger than the first." Something in him shifted. He rebuilt. What failed before flourished this time. And when the project finished on November 1st, it became a symbol of restoration. That is what heaven is saying now. Your second foundation will hold. What once fell apart was never failure. It was training. The structure of your life had to be reset so it could bear the weight of what's coming. This is the prophetic turning point. Heaven is no longer preparing you, it is presenting you. Everything that seemed delayed is being rearranged. The people, the opportunities, the timing. It's all moving into position like stars aligning after years of orbit. You are entering the season where divine order replaces confusion. In this shift, peace will come, not as stillness, but as strength. You will not feel empty. You will feel anchored. You will no longer chase what belongs to you. It will begin to find you. Imagine your life as a great garden after the storm. The ground is soaked. the sky clearing. You step outside and notice small green shoots breaking through the soil where everything once looked barren. That is how breakthrough begins, not loud, but alive. This is your November. Heaven is calling you to step forward, not with striving, but with still confidence. Your part is simple. Believe that the new season is not approaching. You are already standing in it. You are not waiting for revival. You are revival. Your yes to God becomes the trigger that unlocks the timeline of blessing. And when that moment unfolds, you'll understand that every closed door was simply heaven's way of saying, "Not yet. I'm building something greater." If your heart resonates with this word, leave your sign of faith below. Comment the number 333, a number of divine completion and spiritual alignment. It represents the meeting point between the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, perfect unity, purpose, and timing. When you write 333, you're declaring that your spirit now aligns with heaven's design. This simple number becomes your seal of readiness, the quiet amen written in light. Ich drei Ekyos, strength, agreement, and presence. The assurance that you are not walking into November alone. You are standing at the threshold of transformation. And November, first, is not coming to you, it is calling you forward. Step into the new foundation heaven has prepared. And when you cross that unseen threshold, you will feel it like morning light touching your face. Everything heavy will lift, and peace will quietly declare, "You've finally arrived." And the refining fire, few understand its purpose while standing in the middle of it. To the world, it looks like loss. To heaven, it is transformation. Every chosen one passes through fire, not to be consumed, but to be clarified. What you are walking through is not punishment, it is purification. Gold does not argue with the fire. It simply yields until every impurity surfaces and every false layer melts away. That is what God has been doing in you, burning away what cannot stay. Not because He is angry, but because He is preparing you for something weightier than you can yet imagine. The scriptures tell us in the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 3, "He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He will purify the Levites and refine them like gold and silver." Notice the image. He sits. The refiner never leaves the furnace unattended. The process may be hot, but it is not abandoned. While you tremble, He watches. While you cry, He waits for the moment when He can see His reflection in you. Only then is the fire allowed to cool. You've wondered why certain things have been stripped away, relationships fading, doors closing, plans collapsing. Yet, in every loss, something purer has emerged. Like iron being forged into a blade, you have been hammered and heated, stretched and shaped, until what remains is not weaker, but sharper. There was once a man named Daniel who worked in the art of glassmaking. Every piece he created passed through fire, and he learned that the most beautiful colors came only after the highest heat. One evening, as he looked through the glow of his furnace, he realized that his life mirrored his craft. Only through the heat had his soul revealed its true color. From that day on, he no longer feared the fire. He welcomed it. So it is with you. You have been held in the flame of refinement, not to destroy, but to define. What used to break you no longer carries the same weight, does it? The words that once wounded now glance off your spirit like sparks against stone. The fear that once controlled you now burns into courage. This fire has taught you to discern. Not everything that glitters is gold, and not everyone who applauds belongs. In your next chapter, you've learned to tell the difference between opportunities and distractions, between comfort and calling. That is the wisdom of the furnace. It strips away illusions until only truth remains. Imagine standing in a vast forge, the air thick with heat. Around you, metal clangs and flames dance. You see others running from the fire, but you stay. Not because you enjoy the pain, but because you've seen what emerges from it. In that place, strength becomes visible. In that light, you finally understand that the fire was never your enemy. It was your escort to authenticity. The refining fire also has rhythm. There are moments when it burns fiercely, consuming what cannot endure. Then it softens, letting you breathe, letting your edges cool before the next wave. This is why some seasons feel relentless. It's not because heaven forgot you, but because the shaping is delicate. You are being crafted into something precise. And it's in this rhythm that the greatest paradox is found. The fire hurts, yet it heals. It reveals your fragility while making you indestructible. Through it, you learn compassion, humility, and patience, the unshakable traits of those who will carry lasting influence. Look closely at your own story. Can you see it? The transformation was gradual, hidden beneath the ashes. The parts of you that were impatient, fearful, easily shaken, they are gone. What remains is quieter, stronger, truer. You've been reduced, but only to your essence. When you come out of this fire, you will not smell of smoke. You will shine. Your presence will shift rooms not because of charisma, but because purity carries weight. People will not understand it, but they will feel it. The refining fire changes how you see others. 2. It teaches empathy. You recognize pain more quickly now, not to judge it, but to comfort it. Those who have endured flames carry eyes that understand. You will speak differently. Your words will no longer be for noise, but for healing. And when the heat finally lessens, you'll notice something unexpected: peace. The same fire that once felt unbearable now becomes a quiet glow inside your chest. It's the warmth of maturity, the evidence that you have been through something sacred and survived it with grace. So if you are still in the fire, do not panic. The refiner is still seated. The process has purpose. Let it finish its work, because only through the refining comes the revealing. When you emerge, the world will see gold, but heaven will see its reflection. There is a silence that follows the fire, a deep, almost sacred stillness. It is the pause between what has been refined and what is about to be revealed. Many mistake this silence for abandonment, but it is not absence, it is observation. Heaven stands still in this moment, watching what the fire has made of you. You are not being ignored, you are being studied. Every layer burned away, every weakness exposed, every fear faced. Heaven takes note. The silence of God is not rejection, it is reverence. When heaven grows quiet, it is because the work is holy. The scriptures remind us in the book of Psalms, chapter 37, verse 7, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes. Stillness is not easy for a soul used to striving. You've learned how to fight, to pray loudly, to push forward when everything resisted you. But now heaven asks something harder, to be still, because the quiet after fire is not inactivity, it is incubation. Think of the seed buried beneath the soil. After it breaks open, it doesn't rush upward. It rests in darkness for a while, unseen but alive, drawing strength from the hidden streams beneath. That's where you are now buried, but breathing. The silence is feeding you, not starving you. You've prayed for signs, asked for movement, pleaded for something visible, yet nothing seems to happen. The truth is, everything is happening beneath the surface, like the earth after rainfall. Your spirit is soaking in what heaven poured out in the fire. The fruit cannot appear until the roots are steady. There was once a musician who stopped hearing melodies. For years, his hands played, but his heart was silent. Frustrated, he put away his instruments and stopped composing. Months later, while sitting in a park, he heard the sound of the wind weaving through leaves. Like 1,000 quiet strings, it was music, but not his own. In that stillness, he realized that inspiration had never left. He had simply needed silence to hear it again. So it is with you. When God goes quiet, He is not gone. He is speaking in a new language, one made of rest, peace, and patience. The silence is an invitation to listen differently. You might remember the days when prayer felt like fire in your bones. Now, it feels like breathing underwater, slow, heavy, wordless. Yet that's not loss, it's depth. God is drawing you into a conversation that no longer needs constant noise. The silence of God is a classroom for those He trusts. It teaches discernment, how to hear whispers instead of shouts, how to notice divine fingerprints in ordinary days. You begin to see messages, not only in verses and visions, but in the rhythm of life itself, in the pause between heartbeats, in the patience it takes for a sunrise to unfold. In this silence, you also learn something powerful: obedience without explanation. You no longer need to understand everything to continue. You simply know that if God led you here, then this quiet space is as divine as any miracle. Imagine standing at dawn beside a still lake. The surface is glass, reflecting the sky. No waves, no ripples. For a moment, you hesitate to move because even a breath might disturb the peace. That's how this season feels, fragile yet full of glory. The quiet has become a mirror, showing you who you are without the noise of striving. The danger of this season is not failure, it's distraction. When heaven is silent, the world grows loud. Voices call you back to busyness, to self-doubt, to constant comparison. But silence is strength, disguised as solitude. The one who learns to sit with silence becomes unshakable. Remember Elijah after the wind, the earthquake, and the fire. The voice of God did not thunder, it whispered. That whisper changed history. The power of heaven often hides in the gentle moments that no one notices. And so, as you rest in this holy quiet, resist the urge to force movement. You are not stuck, you are being steadied. Every great unveiling begins with a hush. The silence of God is not punishment, it is preparation for presence. Soon, the stillness will give way to sound again. But when it does, your ears will be sharper, your heart steadier, your faith deeper. You will not rush anymore. You will move with rhythm, Not panic with confidence. Not noise. This is the silence before the song. Wait for it. The first note is coming. There comes a moment when silence gives birth to sound, when heaven releases the next note, and authority awakens within you. You have waited, endured, refined, and rested. Now, something begins to stir. You start to sense that your words carry new weight, that your prayers no longer feel small. This is the awakening of authority, the moment when heaven entrusts you to speak what once only angels whispered. The scriptures reveal in the book of Luke, chapter 10, verse 19, I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. Authority is not noise, it is weight. It does not need to shout to be heard. When you speak from alignment, even the unseen world listens. Heaven is not giving you volume, it is giving you voice. You've been through fire and silence, because power without purity destroys. Now that your spirit has been refined, your words can build instead of break. When you pray, the atmosphere shifts. When you declare peace, storms begin to calm. That's not imagination, that's authority being activated. There's a story told of a woman who used to pray timidly. Her words felt fragile, her faith uncertain. But one night, as she prayed for her sick child, something rose within her, a quiet certainty that her voice was being carried directly to heaven. She didn't scream. She simply whispered, "He lives." And in that whisper, authority moved. By morning, healing had come. She realized that faith was never about volume, it was about conviction. Chosen one, that same authority rests in you. The waiting was never meant to make you timid, it was meant to make you trustworthy. God was not delaying you, He was deepening you. Every battle, every silence, every heartbreak has built something strong inside you. Authority doesn't make you louder, it makes you stiller. You begin to speak less, but everything you say matters more. You stop begging heaven for what already belongs to you and begin to walk as if the answer is already unfolding. Because it is. Imagine a lion in a quiet field. It doesn't roar to prove it's powerful. Its presence alone shifts the air. That's the kind of still power you now carry, confidence, without arrogance, peace that doesn't need permission. Heaven's authority manifests not only in miracles, but in the way you move. You forgive quicker, love deeper, discern faster. You no longer waste energy trying to be understood. You simply stand where God placed you and let light speak for itself. This awakening also means you'll notice resistance increase. Darkness always reacts to rising authority. Do not be surprised if conflicts surface or old fears try to return. That's not regression, it's recognition. The enemy sees what heaven has crowned, but now you respond differently. You don't panic, you command peace. You don't curse the darkness, you ignite your light. You understand that authority is not about control, it's about surrender to a higher voice that now speaks through you. Think of Moses before the sea. The staff in his hand was ordinary until obedience touched it. What you hold may look simple, a talent, a word, a gift, but once yielded to heaven, it becomes a weapon of deliverance. Authority is not claimed, it is confirmed. The proof is in the fruit, peace that follows your words, courage that rises in your wake, healing that happens where you once felt helpless. That's how heaven marks its messengers. You will begin to sense it in subtle ways. Your presence will carry calm. Your prayers will pierce confusion. And where once you trembled to speak, now your voice will flow like clear water over stone, steady, pure, unstoppable, chosen one. You are stepping into a realm where your words will not return empty. Speak with love, act with conviction, and know that heaven stands behind you. If this resonates in your spirit, leave a sign below. Comment, "I rise." When you write those 2 words, you're not seeking recognition, you're acknowledging resurrection. It means the old version of you that doubted and hesitated has fallen away. "I rise" is not a statement, it's a prophecy. You are declaring that heaven's authority now breathes through you, that silence has given way to sound, and that every word you speak will now carry life. To say, "I rise," is to accept divine partnership, to stand where fear once ruled, and to breathe again with heaven's rhythm. It's your living proof that faith has found its voice. This is your awakening. The waiting has ended. The voice has returned. Speak light, and the world will listen. You can feel it now, this gathering in the air, the invisible pull that draws those who carry the same flame. It's not coincidence that you've crossed paths with voices like yours, hearts that have walked through silence, fire, and faith. This is the gathering of the remnant, the ones heaven hid, refined, and now brings together. You are not alone in this calling. Scattered across the earth are others who have heard the same whisper, felt the same awakening. Some you will meet in person, others you will meet through words like these threads of light, weaving the chosen together. What binds you is not similarity of story, but unity of purpose. Each carries a different instrument, but all play one divine song. The scriptures affirm this in the first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 12, verse 27. Now you are the body of Christ, and each one of you is a part of it. Together, you form something far greater than you could ever be alone. One carries the flame of prayer, another the fire of compassion, another the spark of wisdom. When these lights converge, darkness has no place to hide. Think of yourselves as lanterns scattered across a valley, alone. Each gives a small circle of light. But when you come together, those small lights form constellations, patterns that guide others through their own night. This is the beauty of the remnant. It does not compete, it completes. And as this light spreads, it finds new paths through words shared, through acts of kindness, through hearts that decide to keep the fire alive. When you like, share, or subscribe, you are not following a page. You are feeding a flame. You are adding your voice to a choir that refuses to let the light fade. Every time these words reach another weary soul, heaven rejoices, because sometimes one message can become the gentle push that keeps someone from giving up. When you share, you become a messenger yourself, an invisible bridge between despair and hope. There's a story of a fisherman who kept a single lantern by his boat each night. One stormy evening, another vessel lost its way and saw his light across the dark waters. The next morning, the stranger thanked him, saying, "Your small lamp saved an entire crew." The fisherman smiled softly and replied, "It wasn't much light, but I kept it burning." That is what you do every time you help this message travel. Your light, your click, your kindness, your generosity becomes part of that same rescue. And if these messages have brought comfort or strength to your journey, consider something deeper, not out of pressure, but as an act of alignment. A simple donation becomes a drop of oil in the lamp, a way to keep the flame burning for others still lost in their storms. It's not obligation, it's offering. Imagine it this way: every seed you plant, every small act of support, is like tossing a pebble into a still lake. The ripples move outward, touching distant shores you will never see, hearts you will never meet. But heaven sees every ripple. You are helping sustain a flow of light that reaches far beyond these words. Your giving becomes part of the river of grace that carries healing where it's needed most. And if today you cannot give, your presence here still matters deeply. Every prayer, every comment, every moment you spend listening is a contribution to this divine current. The fire burns not from one source, but from the shared warmth of many. This gathering of the remnant is not about a single voice, it's about us. Woven together by purpose, you are part of a living mosaic, a pattern of faith, compassion, and courage that heaven designed long before you knew your name. So, keep your heart open. Like this message, if it stirred something inside you, share it if you feel its light could guide another. Subscribe if you want to walk with this growing circle of flame. And if you feel led, donate as your heart wills, not because you must, but because you can. In doing so, you are saying, "Count me in. I will keep the fire burning." The gathering has begun, and you are one of the lights heaven has chosen to shine in this hour. Together, the remnant will rise not as noise, but as melody, not as a crowd, but as a chorus of faith. And as these lights connect across distance and time, the valley will glow like morning, and hope will no longer be a flicker, it will be a sunrise. There are battles that seem to repeat themselves, patterns of delay, cycles of almost and not yet, chains that feel invisible but heavy. You have prayed, fought, and believed, yet some areas of your life appear unmoved, like a door slightly open but never fully swinging free. This is the moment when heaven begins to address not your desire, but your captivity. It is time to break the chains of delay. You've seen these chains before. They're not made of iron, they're forged from fear, self-doubt, exhaustion, and the silent belief that maybe things will never change. Yet the truth is simpler and far stronger. The delay was never permanent. It was divine timing in disguise. The scriptures remind us in the book of Isaiah, chapter 60, verse 22, "When the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen." That single promise has more power than every obstacle standing in front of you. Heaven's "not yet" has always been protection, not punishment. God waited because He wanted the foundation beneath you strong enough to carry the blessing He is about to release. Sometimes, the hardest chains to break are the ones that feel comfortable. You've learned to live inside your waiting, adjusting your rhythm to disappointment, convincing yourself that delay is destiny. But this moment is different. Heaven is shifting the timeline. You will begin to feel time itself bend toward acceleration. What once took years will take days. What once drained your strength will now yield easily to grace. There was once a farmer who spent years planting seeds that never seemed to sprout. He blamed the soil, the weather, even himself. Then one spring, Without warning, rain fell for days, and the ground that had resisted suddenly burst with green. Every seed from every past season came alive at once. The harvest was overwhelming. He realized that delay was not denial, it was accumulation. That's what's happening to you now. All the prayers that seemed unanswered, all the faith you sowed into silence, they were not ignored. They were maturing underground. And now heaven whispers, the rain has come. The first sign of breaking delay is internal. You start to notice a new boldness rising. You make decision faster. You stop hesitating. You no longer ask, what if it doesn't work? Instead, you begin to say, what if this is the moment it finally does? Then, the outer shifts follow. Conversations reopen. People who once dismissed you reach out again. Resources appear as if from nowhere. Heaven orchestrates coincidences that carry divine fingerprints. You begin to realize that the chains were never as strong as your agreement with them. Every delay had a lesson hidden within it. It taught you endurance, humility, and discernment. But once the lesson is complete, the waiting loses its right to stay. Heaven does not hold back blessing from a heart that has been trained in patience. Imagine a great clock suspended in the sky. For years, its hands seemed frozen. Now, slowly, they begin to move, ticking with precision, aligning with your obedience. Each tick is a gate opening, a rhythm returning, a promise awakening. The sound is faint at first, but it grows louder with every act of faith. The breaking of delay does not mean chaos, it means clarity. You will know exactly where to go and what to release. You'll feel guided, not pushed. The days ahead will not be about striving, they'll be about stepping into momentum. You might still see resistance, but don't mistake it for failure. Resistance often trembles, hardest right before surrender. Even the walls of Jericho stood tall until the seventh day. You are on your seventh day. Now the sound of obedience has been rising, and the walls are beginning to shake. The moment they fall, you'll notice something miraculous. The energy you used to spend waiting will turn into strength for building. You will not just receive restoration, you will redeem time itself. The years that delay tried to steal will fold back into your hands, like pages closing on a story that was never finished. Heaven's rhythm will replace human pacing. You will find yourself walking through doors that once resisted you, finishing tasks that once exhausted you, and speaking words that carry unusual authority. Look back for a moment. Every closed door, every pause, every unanswered question, it all brought you here, to this very line in time. The chains of delay are not breaking because you're striving harder. They're breaking because heaven has decided it's time. And when heaven decides, no chain can remain. You felt the subtle shift already, the air around you different. The rhythm of your days changing. It's not imagination, it's alignment. Heaven's movements are often quiet at first. Like the turning of an unseen wheel, signs begin to appear. Not as grand displays, but as small confirmations that whisper, you're on the right path. This is the season of alignment, where what was scattered begins to come together, and what was delayed begins to make sense. The pieces of your life that once felt random are now fitting into a pattern that only heaven could design. The scriptures affirm this truth in the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 9. In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. Oh, you've been walking through divine choreography without realizing it. Every detour, every interruption, every no you encountered was really a redirection toward a better yes. Heaven has been guiding you through turns you didn't plan to bring you precisely where you need to be. There was once a traveler who tried to find his way through a desert with only a compass. The winds shifted constantly. The sands erased every footprint, and the sun blinded him. At one point, in exhaustion, he stopped and shouted, "I'm lost." But then, as the evening breeze cooled, he looked up and saw the stars. He realized the compass had been pointing true all along. He just needed stillness to see the pattern. By morning, he had reached the edge of the valley where a river awaited him. That is what divine alignment feels like. You think you're wandering, but heaven has already drawn the map. You've been following guidance that didn't make sense in motion, but now reveals perfection in hindsight. The signs of alignment come in layers. First, peace returns. Not because the storm has ended, but because you finally recognize who commands it. Then, confirmation appears, words spoken by others that echo what heaven already whispered in your spirit. And finally, timing aligns. People you need appear exactly when you are ready to receive them. This is not luck. This is divine mathematics. Heaven multiplies obedience and divides confusion until your life forms a perfect equation of grace. You may notice prophetic numbers, dreams that repeat, or encounters that feel too precise to be chance. These are heaven's coordinates. Pay attention. A number on a clock, a word on a signpost, a name that keeps appearing. These are not coincidences, but clues that heaven is near. You might be tempted to doubt them, to reason them away. But remember, God often speaks in patterns because patterns require patience to see. He hides his messages in repetition so that only those who are truly listening can hear. Imagine your life as a great mosaic, each piece a season, a choice, a tear, a triumph, a loan. Each fragment seems meaningless, but when viewed from above, they form a design breathtaking in its symmetry. That's what alignment looks like when heaven finishes arranging the pieces. Right now, you are in that final arranging. The hands of God are positioning every element around you, relationships, opportunities, even challenges to fulfill the purpose that has been waiting for its appointed hour. There is peace in this stage, if you choose to see it. You no longer need to chase what's meant for you. What belongs to your name will begin to move toward you. It will not arrive early or late, but exactly when your heart is ready to hold it. This alignment is not random, it's reward. You have walked through delay without bitterness, through silence without losing faith. Now heaven begins to respond. If this message resonates within you, mark this moment of recognition. Comment the number 777, a number of divine alignment, spiritual perfection, and heavenly completion. Each 7 represents a layer of divine order, the first for creation, the second for rest, the third for fulfillment. When you write 777, you're declaring, "My life aligns with heaven's design. I trust the process. I accept the timing. I walk in peace." It's not superstition, it's agreement. It's your visible yes to what heaven has already prepared. This number becomes a seal, a statement that you recognize the pattern and are willing to move in harmony with it. It's your quiet act of faith, your signature on heaven's unfolding plan. You are no longer walking blindly. The patterns are forming, the timing is ripening, and the unseen alignment is becoming visible. And when the clock strikes November 1st, everything that once seemed out of rhythm will fall into place, not suddenly, but perfectly. Every great unveiling invites resistance. Just as dawn draws both light and shadow across the earth, so too does breakthrough awaken opposition. When heaven begins to open the final door, darkness always attempts one last counterstrike. It is not coincidence. It is confirmation that you are close to fulfillment. This is the pattern of the spirit realm. The moment after you choose obedience, the test intensifies. The moment after peace settles in, confusion tries to return. Yet, this is not a setback. It is a final measure of strength, a weighing of what you've learned in the fire and the silence. The scriptures remind us in the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 12, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." End of tree. You have likely felt this battle already. Old fears re-emerge. People misunderstand your intentions. Even your own thoughts turn against you. But remember, this resistance is not personal, it is positional. The enemy attacks what he cannot possess. There was once a gardener who tended his field every day. When harvest time neared, flocks of crows appeared, pecking at the fruit that was almost ripe. He didn't panic, he smiled. "They only come when the fruit is sweet," he said. That is how you must see the warfare around you. It's the enemy's proof that your season of sweetness has arrived. The counterstrike often begins subtly. You may feel unusual fatigue, sudden discouragement, or distractions that seem harmless but steal your focus. The darkness no longer seeks to destroy you directly, it tries to divide your attention. But you have learned too much to be moved easily. The silence taught you endurance. The fire taught you focus. You now discern the difference between an obstacle and an invitation. Every chosen one faces this tension before fulfillment, the moment when heaven watches to see whether you will fight with fear or stand with faith. The truth is, you don't need to swing wildly at shadows. You only need to stand. Imagine yourself as a lighthouse during a storm. Waves crash, winds roar, but the light remains steady. It doesn't chase the waves, it simply keeps shining. That is your role in this counterstrike, to remain unmoved, to keep your peace, to let light do the fighting. The darkness fears consistency. It can handle noise, but not endurance. Every time you choose patience over panic, kindness over anger, worship over worry, the darkness loses ground. You are not just surviving, you are advancing in silence. Even the smallest act of faith becomes a weapon. A whispered prayer can split the night. A forgiving word can disarm the unseen. The battlefield is not out there, it's inside the choices you make daily. There is a story about an old soldier who, after years of war, laid down his sword and began to tend a vineyard. When people asked why, he said, "Because peace is the greatest victory." The enemy's last trick is to make you believe you must keep fighting endlessly. But true victory is found in rest, the confident assurance that what God began, He will finish. Look back on the battles you've fought. You didn't survive by chance, you were sustained by grace. Every wound has become wisdom. Every scar, a map that guides you through future storms. What once hurt you now humbles you. That's how heaven converts pain into authority. The counterstrike often comes right before revelation, because revelation exposes darkness. When truth rises, lies lose their grip. So if you feel pressure building again, don't despair. It means the reveal is near. The enemy always shouts loudest, right before silence wins. Picture yourself standing on a cliff at twilight. Behind you, shadows gather, trying to reclaim you. Before you, a horizon glows faintly with gold. You take a breath, not to run, but to rise. The wind that once pushed against you now lifts you higher. That's how divine reversal works. What opposed you becomes what carries you forward. You were never meant to fight forever. You were meant to finish. And the finishing line is not far now. The counterstrike is simply heaven's final classroom, proving that you can carry peace even under pressure. You no longer need to pray for the storm to end. You simply need to remember that you have already been built for it. The silence prepared your spirit. The fire strengthened your will. And now, your authority steadies your heart. Stand firm. You are not losing ground. You are being positioned for the reveal. The noise is temporary, but the light you carry is eternal. When the dust settles, you will see clearly that nothing truly opposed you. Everything only confirmed that you were chosen. After every battle, there comes a quiet moment when heaven leans close and whispers the next instruction. The war within you begins to still. The tension eases, and peace gently settles where exhaustion once lived. This is the stage of final instruction, the time when heaven speaks not through thunder, but through clarity. You've been prepared for this. Every season before was a classroom, and now the lessons begin to form language. What once felt like scattered revelations begin to connect into direction. The fire purified. The silence recalibrated. The warfare confirmed your endurance, and now the voice of God begins to guide your steps again. The scriptures declare in the book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 21, whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you, saying, "This is the way, walk in it." And that is what happens in this season. The noise of confusion fades, and guidance becomes clear. You won't need to beg for signs or plead for confirmation. You will simply know. It will feel like instinct. But it is divine alignment, your spirit tuned to heaven's frequency. The last instruction never comes to rush you. It comes to refine your response. Many people hear God's voice, but few obey with immediate trust. You, however, have been conditioned through the waiting. Obedience has become your second language. That's why this final word will not be loud. It will be familiar. It may come as a dream that lingers when you wake, a thought that refuses to fade, a name that keeps resurfacing in your heart. Heaven will not shout. It will simply repeat until you recognize. When you finally respond, peace will surge through your chest like wind through open fields. There was once a sculptor who worked for years on a single statue. Each day he carved, chipped, and polished until only the faintest imperfections remained. When an apprentice asked how he knew when it was finished, the sculptor smiled and said, "When the stone stops resisting my hand, that is what heaven waits for the moment. Your heart stops resisting and simply yields to the final shaping. You may find this instruction unusual. Sometimes, it won't sound grand at all. It may ask for simplicity, forgiveness, generosity, or rest. Yet within that small command lies a chain reaction of miracles. Heaven measures trust not by how loudly we believe, but by how quickly we obey. Think of Noah, asked to build before rain existed. Think of Mary, asked to believe before the promise showed. Each great movement of heaven began with a single act of obedience that seemed small. The final instruction will often feel too simple to be sacred, but it is the hinge upon which everything turns. The last door you saw open in the Spirit is not complete without this act. The fire built endurance. But obedience opens access. It is the key that fits only once. In these moments, the voice of God also brings separation. You'll notice that not everyone will understand what you're about to do, and that's fine. Final instructions are personal. They are whispered to hearts that have passed the tests of noise and pride. You don't need to explain your obedience. You only need to follow it. Imagine standing at the edge of a great river. The current is steady, the air cool with anticipation. You've been waiting for a sign to cross. And now heaven says simply, step in. The water may look deep, but it's waiting for your movement. The miracle is released, not before, but during the step. This is the sacred paradox of divine guidance. Clarity comes after motion. The first step reveals the second reveals the path. That's why the final instruction always requires courage. You may tremble, but that's part of obedience too. Heaven never demanded perfection, just participation. When you act on the instruction, the atmosphere will shift again. What felt stuck will begin to flow. What felt closed will open naturally, without effort. The last instruction carries acceleration inside it. And as you walk in it, you will sense heaven walking with you. Fear will lose its voice. Doubt will lose its shape. You will begin to move not from anxiety, but from assurance. The final instruction is not the end of your waiting, it is the beginning of your walking. Heaven trusts you now because you've learned to listen. Even when the voice was faint, you are ready for direction that only maturity can handle. The time for stillness is complete. The voice behind you is speaking. This is the way. Walk in it. The door is open now. The air feels lighter. The weight of yesterday slipping quietly from your shoulders. You've walked through fire, silence, and resistance. And now you stand on the other side, changed, steady, glowing with the quiet strength of one who knows they have crossed. This is not the same ground you once stood on. This is holy ground. Crossing through the door is never loud. It happens in still moments, the way your spirit exhales after years of holding breath, the way peace settles in your chest like sunlight through old glass. Heaven doesn't always mark the moment with trumpets. Sometimes it celebrates with stillness. The scriptures remind us in the second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 5, verse 17, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here. That is where you are now. Between what has gone and what has arrived, everything behind you has served its purpose. Every delay, every closed door, every unanswered prayer, they were not endings. They were entrances, disguised as detours. Now that you have stepped through, you begin to notice the world differently. Familiar places feel lighter, colors seem sharper. You are no longer searching for meaning. You are carrying it. The door didn't change your surroundings. It changed your sight. But what happens after a chosen one crosses the last threshold? You begin to live as evidence. Your presence becomes an invitation for others to believe again. You are no longer the one waiting for miracles. You are the one reminding others they still happen. Crossing through the door isn't just about personal blessing. It's about becoming a bridge. You are the proof that endurance births elevation, that obedience opens what effort cannot. The world around you will feel your peace before it hears your story. That is how heaven works. It lets transformation speak through atmosphere before words. Think of your journey like a candle passed through the wind. The flame may have flickered, but it never went out. Now, on the other side of the storm, you realize your light burns steadier, stronger, and softer. It doesn't need to prove itself. It simply shines. And here, at this new beginning, heaven gently asks something of you. Keep the light alive, not as an obligation, but as an act of gratitude. The fire that once guided you can now guide others. When you like or share these words, you are not performing an action, you are echoing light. Every tap, every whisper of agreement is like tossing a glowing ember into the dark, helping another soul find their way. When you subscribe, you're not joining a list, you're joining a river of voices, moving together through purpose. Each listener becomes part of the current, carrying hope into unseen places. If this message has become a lantern in your night, consider adding a drop of oil to the flame. A small act of giving a donation, a prayer, a gesture becomes a ripple of light that keeps the fire alive for the next traveler. It's not about payment, it's participation. Think of it like planting a candle in the window for those still walking home. You never know who will see it, who will pause, who will whisper. That light helped me find my way. Every gift, whether a like, a share, a word, or an offering, becomes a thread in the tapestry of light. Heaven is weaving through the earth. You are not asked to give, you are invited to glow. And if you feel this word touched your soul, write just 2 words below. Light lives. Oh, it's your gentle way of saying, I will keep my flame alive. Not a comment for attention, but a covenant of gratitude, a soft amen glowing through your fingertips. The door behind you is closed, not in rejection, but in completion. And ahead, the path glows faintly, waiting for your steps. You have been entrusted with something sacred, the ability to turn what once hurt into healing for others. You don't need to force this next chapter. Let it unfold like dawn, slow, golden, unstoppable. The same hand that opened the door will guide your every step forward. So, breathe. Stand tall. Let gratitude become your language. Let kindness be your rhythm. You have crossed over. And now your very life is the testimony. If this message speaks to your spirit, let heaven hear your quiet agreement. Like if your heart felt the shift. Share if you sense another needs the reminder. Subscribe if you wish to walk beside this growing circle of light. And give only if your soul stirs, not because you must, but because you may. The journey continues, and the light you carry is needed. Keep it burning, and you will see the world becomes brighter wherever you walk. You have crossed through the door, and now something begins to settle inside you, a peace unlike any you have known before. It is not loud or fleeting. It hums quietly, steady as breath. This is the moment when crowns are placed and commissions are given. Heaven now entrusts you with what you were refined to carry. You may not see a visible crown upon your head, but you will feel its weight in your spirit. It is the sense of purpose that wakes you before sunrise. The certainty that what you carry now belongs to something eternal. You are no longer wandering through preparation. You are walking in assignment. The scriptures remind us in the book of Zechariah, chapter 9, verse 16, "The Lord their God will save his people. As a shepherd saves his flock, they will sparkle like jewels in a crown." That is what this moment represents, the unseen coronation. The trials you endured were not for punishment, they were the forging of authority. Every wound became wisdom. Every test became trust. And now, heaven calls you not just chosen, but commissioned. When God places a crown upon a life, he does not hand over luxury, he imparts responsibility. A crown is not made of gold in the spirit, it is made of burden and love. It is the weight of compassion that keeps you grounded, the fire of truth that keeps you awake, the patience to guide others through what once broke you. Think of how a torchbearer stands in a dark stadium before the crowd. The flame is small in their hand, yet every eye turns toward it. It's not the brightness of the flame that commands attention, it's the faithfulness of the bearer. You are that bearer now. You do not need to shout about your light. You simply need to keep it burning. Heaven never anoints for self-glory. It crowns so that others may be served. The gift you carry was never meant to make you admired. It was meant to make you useful. Your story is not just a testimony, it is a key for someone else's prison. When you speak, people will not just hear encouragement, they will hear release. There was once an old watchmaker who trained apprentices in silence. When one of them finished their first watch, the master handed him a simple tool, a polishing cloth. The student looked confused. "Why not something grander?" he asked. The master smiled and said, "Because only the one who polishes daily understands the value of time." In the same way, your crown will not come with noise, but with quiet discipline. You will not lead by command, but by example. You'll notice that the authority you carry now draws others without effort. People will begin to approach you for wisdom, comfort, or direction. Do not see this as burden. See it as evidence that heaven trusts you with hearts. The true mark of leadership is not influence, it is integrity. In this new season, every action will carry greater weight. Words once thrown carelessly will now plant or uproot. Silence will become a language of strength. Your presence alone will calm storms. Not because of who you are, but because of who moves through you. The commission also changes how you see time. You will stop rushing. You will begin to sense rhythm in every day, a divine pace that keeps you from exhaustion. You'll work with purpose, but rest without guilt. You will no longer confuse stillness with stagnation. You will understand that rest is a weapon too. Imagine standing at the top of a mountain at sunrise. The light hits your face, not with blinding intensity, but with warmth that seeps into your bones. Behind you are valleys of trial. Before you stretches a landscape of promise. You don't need to conquer it all today. You simply need to begin walking. The crown is not an end point, it is a compass. From here, every step you take becomes sacred. The people you meet, the words you speak, the paths you cross, all are now part of your kingdom work. You were not crowned for comfort, you were crowned for calling. The crown is proof that your preparation was not in vain. Carry it with humility. Wear it in silence. Let its weight remind you not of power, but of purpose. You were never chosen just to shine, you were chosen to serve. This is the beauty of divine commissioning. It makes kings into shepherds, and warriors into healers. The ones who emerge from fire do not seek thrones, they build altars. You have become one of them. Heaven's crown rests upon you, unseen yet undeniable. And the commission has already begun. Walk forward. You are the light bearer, the torch in the dark, the living proof that endurance always ends in purpose. You have reached the threshold of completion. The journey that began in obscurity, traveled through fire and silence, now arrives at fulfillment. The crown upon your spirit does not glitter with vanity, it glows with endurance. What once broke you has become the very proof of your divine resilience. Heaven smiles upon you, not for perfection, but for perseverance. Completion in the kingdom is never about finality, it is about fulfillment. It is when the circle closes, when what was promised finally breathes in the present. You are standing in that sacred circle now. Every delay, every unanswered question, every loss that once tore at your faith, they were all threads leading to this tapestry of understanding. The scriptures remind us in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 14, "For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea." That is what this season signifies, overflow. The light that was once confined within you will now flow outward, like a river breaking its banks. You will not need to strive to make impact. You will simply overflow with it. The lessons learned in secret will now become streams of wisdom that refresh others. The fire within has become living water. It begins subtly. You notice your words, healing others when you speak gently. You see peace following you into places once ruled by anxiety. Your very presence starts to rearrange atmospheres, not because you are trying to, but because you now carry the residue of heaven. The fragrance of divine purpose clings to everything you touch. There was once a potter who shaped hundreds of vessels, each with small imperfections. When asked which one was most valuable, he chose the vessel that had cracked and been repaired with gold, because the light shines best through the breaks. He said, "That is what you have become, a vessel mended by grace, radiant not despite your scars, but because of them." Every scar tells heaven's story. Every moment you thought would destroy you became a doorway for light to enter. You were never meant to emerge flawless, you were meant to emerge luminous. Now, heaven begins to expand your borders. You will feel new ideas stirring, new callings forming. Some will appear as opportunities, others as people drawn to your light. You will know what belongs to you because it will bring peace, not pressure. Alignment will feel like rest. You will begin to see that what was once wilderness has become your field of promise. The barren soil you cried over will soon bloom with abundance. Not overnight, but certainly. Heaven never forgets the ground watered by tears. Every seed you sowed in faith now begins to rise. Do not rush the harvest. Let it unfold at its rhythm. True fulfillment is not about the speed of growth, but the depth of roots. The deeper your roots, the longer your fruit will remain. Imagine yourself walking through a valley now transformed into a garden. Flowers you never planted bloom around you. Streams run clear through once dry paths. The air carries songs of restoration, songs you recognize because they sound like the prayers you once whispered in despair. This is what completion feels like, not applause, but peace. You will look around and realize that even the pain had purpose. The rejection preserved your purity. The delay built your discipline. The silence refined your hearing. Every season that seemed wasted was actually weaving this moment. Completion is not about arriving, it is about becoming. You are not here to stand still in success. You are here to live as proof that God finishes what He begins. Every breath from now on is testimony. Every act of kindness, every step of courage, every prayer of gratitude becomes a continuation of that testimony. And now, as you stand beneath heaven's calm gaze, understand this truth. You are not ending, you are expanding. The story is not closing, it is unfolding. Fulfillment is not the full stop, it is the comma before the next revelation. You have entered the place where striving ceases and grace begins to carry. You are walking in rhythm with heaven now, each heartbeat a drum of purpose. Each breath an act of worship. The last door did not end your journey. It opened eternity within you. Walk forward with steady joy. What you were promised has found you. What you carried has matured. And what you became has eternal meaning. This is not the end. This is the unveiling. The crown shines. The light lives. The chosen has become the carrier of glory. The journey has reached its quiet summit. You've walked through every gate, carried every flame, and now stand beneath the wide, endless sky of fulfillment. What began as whispers of calling has become the rhythm of your life. You are not who you were when this started. You are lighter, clearer, radiant with peace. And yet this is not an ending. It is a continuation. Every word you've read, every truth that has stirred your heart, was never meant to stop with you. You are a living echo of light. And light multiplies only when shared. If these words have stirred something deep within you, let that stirring become motion. Like this message as a quiet acknowledgement that you felt heaven's hand brush against your heart. Share it not as obligation, but as overflow. The way rivers give water freely once they've been filled. Every share is a ripple of light extending further than you can see. Leave a comment if you wish. Not for recognition, but remembrance. Write simply, "Light continues." Those two words are more than text, they are a promise. They mean, my flame still burns. I will carry what I've received and keep it alive for others to see. Your comment becomes a small lantern hung on the path for someone still walking home. Subscribe if your spirit desires to stay connected to this circle of light. Not to follow, but to walk together, to keep the flame alive through every season to come. Every soul that joins adds another spark to this growing constellation of faith. And if you have found healing, direction, or strength in these words, consider adding one drop of oil to the flame. A small gift, a simple act of giving. It's never about the amount, but the intention. That oil becomes part of the shared glow that lights distant hearts you may never meet. Together, these drops form a sea of fire, gentle, steady, unstoppable. Each act of kindness, your like, your share, your prayer, your giving is another way of whispering to heaven, the light lives on. And indeed, it does through you. The journey expands with every act of love. The light continues through you.